Living with Jim Brogan, your source of information for living the best years of your life, your way. For more than a decade, host Jim Brogan and his expert guests have come together each week to share important news and advice that can impact the lives and well-being of those who are retired and those nearing retirement. Learn about issues like health and fitness, financial planning, Social Security benefits, investment advice, and more. And now, here's the host of More Living, Jim Brogan.
Good morning, East Tennessee, and welcome.
Good morning, East Tennessee, and welcome to More Living with Jim Brogan, where it's all about living the best years of your life your way. I want to thank you for tuning in to News Talk 98.7 WOKI. And, you know, I know many of you know that I'm just an avid sports fan. I'm Tennessee through and through. You know, I grew up playing sports. I played basketball and baseball growing up, and I swam competitively, especially in the summers was when I liked to do a lot of that. And like many of you, I've really missed watching a lot of the spring sports stuff. I mean, certainly March Madness is such a fun time. We just would have had the Kentucky Derby last weekend, and I really missed the traditional orange and white game. We missed the Masters golf tournament. Of course, some of that's being rescheduled for the fall. But COVID-19 has really affected every part of our lives, even down to how we spend our free time, both watching sports and participating in sports, and especially with our kids participating in sports. You know, teams have had to cancel or postpone entire seasons, and there's even talk of playing sports in front of empty stadiums. So I have WBIR sports reporter Luis Fernandez with us. He's been following all the latest changes and developments when it comes to sports at the local, the national, and the world stages. Good morning, Luis. Welcome to More Living. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be up early on a Saturday morning. Wish we could be talking about the sports that are going on this weekend, but I mean, that's just kind of the world we live in right now, you know?
And it's just bizarre, isn't it? I mean, yeah. We'd be getting ready for the NBA playoffs right now. We'd have had the Kentucky Derby last weekend. And, of course, the missing out on the March Madness, you know, that first weekend of April, that first week of April where we have the Final Four and then it goes straight into the Masters week is one of my very favorite weeks of the year. And, so much we build around watching these great sporting events, right?
Oh, no, I mean, absolutely. You look at, you go back to March Madness, like you said, when all of this really started, in earnest to impact sports all around the country and all around the world. And, I grew up in North Carolina. I went to school at UNC. So, March Madness, that's a big deal where I'm from. You'd always have the ACC tournament. They'd reel in the big TVs, you know what I'm saying? And during lunch, you'd sit there and watch, whatever the noon game was of the ACC tournament on a Wednesday or on a Thursday. And so you lose that. I mean, that's a huge chunk of just kind of the American sports psyche. The brackets take over for so long there, and now it just you snap your fingers and it was gone. It was unprecedented.
Well, and now we'd be into baseball season, and there's just so many things. And I was really looking forward to the NBA playoffs. Well, let's start with let's go through some of these things that are going on right now. In college and pro sports. Of course, the Olympics has been rescheduled. Let's get into a lot of this stuff. And then Louis, I want to get into how this is affecting youth sports and what does that mean for down the road. But let's start with the NBA. You know, the NBA kind of got all this rolling. They were the first to actually start canceling some games. Of course, we had the one player, I don't remember if it was Salt Lake or Denver, out in Utah or Denver, that the player that got infected with coronavirus.
Rudy Gobert. Yeah, it was Rudy Gobert with the Jazz,
with the Utah Jazz. So I know they were the first to cancel, and it was such a shock when that happened. And looking back, it doesn't seem so shocking. But when that happened, it was such a shock. What have you heard? What is the plan for the NBA? I know we've heard different things, that they definitely want to finish their year, even if they have to push back next year. They've talked about gathering in one spot. What are you hearing about the NBA?
So earlier this week, actually, I believe it was was either yesterday or Thursday, Adam Silver had a teleconference, a press conference, essentially, with all the players, talking about kind of what the next steps are and what it all looks like. You bring up how they were the first ones to really get the ball rolling here, and absolutely. I remember when everything went down, it was Utah and it was Oklahoma City, and they're getting ready to tip off, and all of a sudden the athletics trainer just comes sprinting onto the court to talk to the refs, and it was so just bizarre. But in terms of what the future looks like, yes, they're definitely trying to play a game. The question is just what will the season look like? How will it look going forward? There's a lot of talk of, I was listening to Adrian Wojnarowski from ESPN talking yesterday on SportsCenter, and there's talk of probably no fans. Trying to look at a situation where you have centralized locations so that there's less traveling. I know a couple of weeks ago there was the rumor that they'd be playing games at Disney World or something along those lines. But it's definitely they want to get things done. They want to regroup the schedule. There's talk of if they start playing again in a couple of months, and they pick things up and get into the playoffs, possibly even starting the next season of NBA basketball later on in, say, December. But what is so difficult is that they have to have access to testing. They have to have a situation where, these are not just the league, but the NBA Players Association is also coming to an agreement in terms of what is best for the financial aspect of the league and also the health aspect of the league. Just so quickly, Rudy Gobert had the coronavirus, and then, instantly in that situation, they have to kind of lock down the entire Utah Jazz and figure out, okay, does anyone else on the team, does anyone else in the facility have that kind of, that virus? And, Donovan Mitchell is, all-star teammate, ends up catching it as well. And then you have to go back 2 weeks and look at every other team they had played in that 2-week span and going from there and seeing who else could have caught the disease. And it's really tough. There's so much logistics that go behind it, but they're definitely trying to have, the rest of the season play out. I mean, which I'm sure, fans all across the NBA is a global sport, so all across the world would enjoy and hope, but it's definitely going to be a very tough balancing act. The thing that Wojnarowski said yesterday was that June is going to be a big month to watch, and that seems to be a trend with a lot of these different leagues. June is the month to be paying attention to.
We're visiting with Luis Fernandez, WBIR sports reporter, and talking about all the ramifications of what's going on in the sports world. I know it's a big part of all of our lives. I'm an avid sports fan. And, Luis, I remember when all this started happening, LeBron James had said, I'm not going to play in front of no fans. Now, I think his perspective now, with the way everything has evolved, and, of course, it's starting to affect pro athletes' compensation, too. But his perspective, I would think, has changed. But the idea of sports with no fans, especially team sports in front of packed arenas and outdoor stadiums, basketball, football stadiums. I guess, there's no way we can really judge or have an idea what that would look like. Talk from your perspective, Luis, about how big the fans are a part of the event, even watching on TV, how much fans contribute to the feel of the event, how they contribute to the experience of the athletes, and how different that would be watching these major events in huge stadiums with no fans if that's what ends up happening.
Oh, absolutely. I think if you start just on a very basic level of what the game looks like and what is going on in a game, it's chilling. It's haunting to imagine these, professional athletes playing these very important games. Like, could you imagine the NBA Finals with no fans? Like, it's
crazy.
Exactly.
Now, think of all the things we would. Think of the things we would hear, though. Oh my gosh, we would hear everything, wouldn't we? They not would want us to hear everything, right? Think of the sounds. Yeah. Think of the sounds of the football. Think of in the NFL, all the collisions. Think of the sounds we would hear.
Oh, absolutely. It would be. There's another layer to it for sure. Like, you've got you'll be watching a game and you have like mic'd up moments where you're getting a chance. Like you're not going to need someone to be mic'd up to hear what's going on in the timeout anymore.
Yeah,
you get the camera close enough and like you'll pick it all up. You'll pick it all up.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Now, professional athletes have been working out at home too, just like all that we have. We've done virtual workouts. And, it's been fun to watch these athletes invent things. We had the horse challenge in the NBA. But it's been a long break for these athletes. Can you talk a little bit about, how will this long break from organized workouts, I would think especially at the college level, how that could affect the players and the sports as we start to come out of this?
That's a very good point, and it's going to be difficult. You do have, you talk about the horse challenge. I remember you're watching kind of the different setups that these players have. Like some people are shooting a basketball from their driveway, and Mike Connolly, formerly with the Grizzlies, now with the Jazz, he's over here. He's got an indoor basketball facility, a gym that was bigger than my apartment, like my entire apartment. Bigger than felt like my house, like that I'd lived in growing up. And so some people, like the professional athletes, are going to have better access to that kind of stuff. But on a collegiate level, that really is where you're starting to get into a very tricky situation when it comes to conditioning, when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to all those different things. Because if we use like Tennessee athletics and Tennessee football as an example, these student athletes, they have access to all these weights, they have access to indoor facilities, they have access to the trainers who are there to help them stay in shape, to rehab if they have any kind of injury. And then from a nutrition perspective, they have all this. They have their nutritionists who are helping them make sure they get the right food into their body. And now you take them and you remove them from those very controlled situations, and it's difficult. You have to remember that on a football team, student athletes are coming from all kinds of walks of life. And so, the amount of student athletes who are going to have access to an entire weight room at their home, I mean, it's not a lot. And so, I know each kid in their own hometown, I mean, it's going to be in potentially a completely different environment to be able to not only work out, but keep them out of trouble. I mean, just the ramifications of that. I know we're focusing on the sports side, but there's so many ramifications, aren't there? No, there really are. And it's really difficult because, everyone, one of the cool things about, if we continue to use a college football team as an example, you have so many people coming from so many different walks of life, and coming from so many different places. You look at a football team roster and, there are X amount of players that come from the state of Florida, X amount of players that come from the state of New York, X amount of players that come from the state of California. So you're taking this group of student athletes and you're sending them out to the different corners of the countries where, their personal life may be different. Their, the access, like I said, whether it be like to gyms, to nutrition, whatever it might be, is going to be different. Where the coronavirus situation in their respective parts of the country is also different. And so those are all different things you have to keep in mind. And I know Tennessee football and a lot of Tennessee's university has been doing a really good job staying in connection with the student athletes, providing, different examples of what their nutrition needs to be looking like. You actually have the Tennessee strength and conditioning staff releasing daily videos telling student athletes the different workouts that they can do at home, with just the things they have lying around, something as simple as running up a hill or, doing squats and doing curls and things like that with gallon jug water bottles, all kinds of different things like that, trying to adapt. So what this is really testing is the teams and the different organizations and programs, their creativity and what they can do and how they can adapt to these situations.
Yeah, absolutely. We're visiting with Luis Fernandez, sports reporter for WBIR. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Olympics being rescheduled and how has that affected some of the athletes. What kind of buzz has he picked up on? And we're also going to get into youth sports and what the implications are there. So don't go away as you listen to More Living with Jim Brogan here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.